My neighbor left me his dog and a list of rules. I moved into my new apartment on a Tuesday in late September, the kind of Tuesday that feels like a warning. The sky hung low and gray, the air was thick with humidity that clung to my skin, and a strange heaviness settled in my chest the moment I crossed the threshold. The place was a last resort, something scraped together with a combination of desperation, bad luck, and dwindling savings. It was a third-floor walk-up in a building that might have once had charm, long since suffocated by time and neglect. The walls were yellowed from years of cigarette smoke, the baseboards cracked, and each step up the stairs announced your arrival with groaning creaks. Nothing about it felt lived in the comforting sense, just occupied, worn down, haunted in a way I couldn't define. The kind of place you don't decorate, just endure. The apartment itself was bare bones. One bedroom. A galley kitchen with a sink that whined when you used it. Floors that were uneven enough to make a rolling chair feel like it was haunted. The windows faced the alley, which meant zero sunlight and a view of dumpsters, graffiti, and the backs of other crumbling buildings. But it was cheap and, more importantly, available. I signed the lease within hours of seeing it. That first night, as I unpacked boxes and fought the ever-present hum echoing from somewhere deep in the building, maybe the walls, maybe the vents, maybe inside my own skull, I met my neighbor, Rick. He knocked on my open door like he already owned part of my space. A man in his late 50s, tall and solid, with a salt and pepper beard that looked like it hadn't been trimmed in years. He wore jeans stained with paint or oil and a faded flannel shirt rolled up at the sleeves. His eyes were sunken but sharp, like a man who'd seen far too much and learned to stop being surprised by any of it. Standing beside him was a dog. Not just any dog. This one was big, maybe part Great Dane, part something meaner. Jet black from head to tail. Its coat gleamed like wet asphalt in the hallway light, and it stood perfectly still, not a tremble, not a twitch. And its eyes, God, its eyes. Brown, almost too human, like they understood more than they should. Not curious like most dogs, but observant. Calculating. I swear I saw it study me the way you might assess whether a stranger is dangerous or worth trusting. Rick didn't introduce himself with a handshake. Didn't smile. He just held out a beer, an unopened can of something cheap and warm from his back pocket, and said, "If anything ever happens to me, take care of my dog." I blinked. "Sorry, what?" He pointed to the dog. "His name's Bishop. If anything happens to me, he's yours." I gave an awkward laugh. "You serious?" He didn't laugh. Didn't blink. Just nodded once and turned away without another word. Bishop followed without a sound, his massive paws gliding over the floorboards like they weren't there. It was strange, sure. But people are strange. And this building, this place, it seemed to collect the type of folks who didn't belong anywhere else. I didn't see Rick again for the rest of the week. I told myself he was just an eccentric neighbor, probably lonely, maybe a little too fond of conspiracy forums or those weird horror podcasts. But something about the way he said it, that calm certainty, the lack of irony, unsettled me more than I wanted to admit. By Friday, I had mostly unpacked and settled into a routine of bad sleep, worse coffee, and a new job that was just enough to keep my head above water. That evening, I climbed the stairs, unlocked my door, and immediately stopped short. Bishop was there, sitting in front of my apartment like a statue carved from midnight. No collar, no leash, just sitting, staring at the door with those same uncanny eyes. "Hey, buddy," I said cautiously. "Where's your owner?" He didn't move, didn't wag his tail, just stared. I looked down the hallway. Rick's door was slightly ajar, the inside dark. I knocked. No answer. Pushed it open. Still no sound. The apartment was empty. Totally empty. Not just messy or neglected, abandoned. No furniture. No signs of a move. The air inside was cold in a way that didn't match the temperature outside, and it smelled faintly of burnt plastic. I stepped back, heart suddenly pounding. Something was wrong. When I turned around, Bishop was already inside my apartment, lying on the living room floor like he'd always lived there. Like he was home. Then I noticed the envelope. Taped to my front door, right at eye level. Plain white, slightly yellowed at the corners, with my name written in tight, meticulous handwriting. Inside, there was a folded piece of lined paper. No date. No greeting. Just a message in Rick's blocky, deliberate scrawl. "If you're reading this, I'm gone. Take care of Bishop. But follow these rules exactly." Underneath, a list. Feed him only after 9 p.m. Never earlier. He doesn't bark. If you hear him bark, hide. He will leave at exactly 3:33 a.m. Do not follow him. If he stares at the front door for more than 10 seconds, do not open it. No matter what you hear. Every Sunday at midnight, take him to Unit 6B. Knock 3 times, then leave. Don't wait. Don't speak. I reread the list twice, my fingers tingling with adrenaline. It felt like something out of an urban legend or one of those viral horror posts. At any other time, I would have laughed it off, maybe snapped a picture to send to a friend with a joke about my creepy new digs. But something about it felt real. And Rick was gone. Just gone. No note. No text. No sound of moving boxes or a moving truck. His apartment didn't look vacated, it looked abandoned in an instant, like someone left mid-thought. I looked at Bishop again. He was lying there, watching me, eyes half closed but still alert. Still measuring me. I checked my phone. 8:46 p.m. Okay, I muttered. We'll wait. At exactly 9 o'clock, I filled a bowl with some leftover rotisserie chicken and rice. It was all I had. He ate it without hesitation, but not greedily, just efficiently. Mechanically. When he finished, he went back to the living room and laid down again. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not really. Every creak of the building made me flinch. The humming noise in the walls seemed louder than usual. At one point, just past 3 a.m., I sat up and instinctively checked the hallway. Bishop wasn't there. The door was shut. I hadn't heard him leave. But I checked the clock. 3:33 a.m. I stood there, staring at the closed door, wondering what the hell I had gotten myself into. Wondering what kind of man Rick was. Wondering why a part of me already believed the rules were real. At 3:38 a.m., Bishop was back. I don't know how he got in. The door hadn't opened. The windows were locked. But he was there, soaking wet and covered in dirt, lying in the same spot as before, breathing heavy like he'd run 10 miles through a swamp. I didn't sleep at all after that. The next morning, I called the property manager. Asked about Rick. Asked about Bishop. All I got was, Rick? Nah, there's no tenant by that name. Never has been. You sure you're in the right building? My hands were shaking when I hung up. I stood in the middle of my tiny kitchen, staring at the list of rules I had pinned to the fridge. And for the first time since I moved in, I realized something. I wasn't alone. And I wasn't in control anymore. Bishop had chosen me. The first night passed without incident. I fed Bishop at exactly 9 p.m., just as the rules instructed. No earlier, no later. I sat on the faded couch with the chipped armrest and watched the clock as the minute hand ticked forward. When it struck the hour, I filled his bowl, this time with real dog food I'd picked up on the way home, hoping it wouldn't offend him. He ate without hesitation, silently, methodically. Afterward, he returned to his spot by the door and lay down, head resting on his paws, still as stone. I tried to distract myself with noise. The television flickered in the corner of the room, the volume turned low enough not to startle either of us. I didn't watch it so much as I stared through it, through the screen, through the walls, into the dark corners of the apartment where the shadows seemed to stretch just a little too far. At 3:33 a.m., Bishop rose. No warning. No stretch, no sound. Just up on his feet in one clean movement. He turned and looked at me. Not in passing at me. It lasted maybe 4 seconds, but I felt it like a weight pressing down on my ribs. There was something in that look. Not affection. Not loyalty. It was a kind of acknowledgement. As if he were checking to see if I'd kept my part of the deal. If I was paying attention. Then, without a sound, he walked to the front door and nudged it open with his nose. I hadn't even realized it was ajar. He slipped out into the hallway, paws whispering across the warped floorboards. No leash. No sound. No goodbye. I waited. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. I stood by the door for a while, listening. But there was only the humming. That same low, constant buzz in the walls that never stopped, like the building itself was breathing. Eventually, I went back to bed. The next morning, Bishop was there, lying in front of the apartment door like nothing had happened. I opened the door, and he stood up, walked in, and curled into his usual spot by the couch without so much as a tail wag. And so it continued. Thursday night. Then Friday. Feed at 9 o'clock. He eats. He sleeps. He leaves at 3:33 a.m. Back in the morning. Always dry. Always clean. As if he'd never left. As if nothing had changed. But something had changed. Me. I wasn't sleeping well. Every creak in the building felt louder now. Every draft. Every strange sound in the pipes put me on edge. I kept imagining Bishop was going to stop in the middle of the room. Look at me and speak. Not bark, speak. He hadn't made a single sound. Not a single whine or growl in 3 days. That kind of silence plays tricks on you. Then came Saturday. The air felt different that day. Thicker. Like the humidity had found a way inside my skin. The building was too quiet. Like it was holding its breath. I went out only once, to get groceries and a bottle of bourbon. And when I came back, the stairwell smelled like ozone and rust. That night, I fed Bishop at the usual time. He ate in silence. I poured myself a drink and put on a late-night movie I didn't care about, some grainy horror flick with too much fake blood. Bishop sat next to the door as always, and then he barked, just once. But it wasn't the bark of a dog. It was loud and deep and off. It sounded almost like a word, twisted and compressed through the throat of something that had only recently learned how to mimic sound. Like a human was pretending to bark. My glass slipped from my hand and hit the carpet with a soft thud. I didn't even notice it spilling. Every muscle in my body seized. Bishop's head turned sharply toward the door. His ears perked up and forward. And then I remembered, he doesn't bark. If you hear him bark, hide. I didn't hesitate. The lights, I shut them off first. Every lamp, every overhead bulb. My fingers fumbled over the switches like they didn't belong to me. Then the closet. The coat closet near the front door wasn't much, just deep enough to crouch in. I slipped inside, pulling the door shut behind me until only a sliver of light came through the crack. I held my phone in both hands, screen dimmed, no sound, no vibration. My breathing was shallow and rapid. And then, knocking, not loud, but deliberate. 3 slow, heavy knocks. Couldn't move. My knees were already aching from crouching, but I didn't dare shift my weight. Then a voice. "Hey there, buddy," it said. Male, warm, familiar, but wrong. Something in that voice, something beneath it, was like a bad impression. Like someone who had heard Rick speak once and was trying to mimic him using broken muscle memory and poor direction. "You gonna let me in?" My stomach lurched. I felt bile rise in my throat. Bishop was still out there. I couldn't see him, but I could hear his low growl, long, drawn out, barely audible beneath the ringing in my ears. The voice outside the door tried again. "Come on, pal. I left you my dog, didn't I? That counts for something, doesn't it?" Then another set of knocks, louder this time, faster. I pressed my back against the wall of the closet, as far as I could get from the door. My phone buzzed once in my hands. Some app notification, meaningless, but the vibration felt deafening in the silence. Then the voice said something that made my blood turn to ice. "Open the door, or I'll come in the other way." I didn't know what that meant. I didn't want to know. There was a long pause, then silence. No knocking, no voice, no growling, just nothing. I waited and waited. Minutes dragged into what felt like hours. I counted to 100, then 200. I stayed in that closet until my legs were numb and my fingers cramped around my phone. Eventually, I emerged. The apartment was dark. Still, Bishop was sitting by the door, his head tilted toward me. Not growling now, just watching. I turned on the lights, slowly, one by one. No one was at the door. No note, no signs of forced entry. But Bishop didn't move until sunrise. He sat there, back straight, like a sentry, until the sky outside turned blue-gray and the birds began to sing. Then he walked over to the couch and curled up like nothing had happened. I didn't sleep, not even for a second. The rules hadn't said what to do if the voice came back, or what happened if I opened the door. I didn't need to know. I was certain, deep in my gut, that if I had cracked that door, I would have seen something wearing Rick's voice like a mask. Something that could reach through the threshold and peel me out of my skin like an orange. That Sunday, I watched the clock all day. Dread built like a storm gathering on the horizon, because I remembered the 5th rule. Every Sunday at midnight, take him to Unit 6B. Knock 3 times, then leave. Don't wait. Don't speak. I didn't even know where 6B was. My building didn't have 6 floors. Sunday came. All day, I told myself I wasn't going to do it. I paced the apartment, stared out windows, cleaned things that didn't need cleaning. I drank 3 cups of coffee just to stay awake, even though sleep hadn't really come since Wednesday. My nerves were frayed. My skin felt too tight on my bones, and every time Bishop looked at me, I imagined him silently judging me. But no matter how many excuses I tried to invent, one thing kept gnawing at me, the final rule in Rick's letter. Every Sunday at midnight, take him to Unit 6B. Knock 3 times, then leave. Don't wait. Don't speak. Not a suggestion. A command. And somehow, despite everything I thought I believed about reality, I knew something terrible would happen if I broke that rule. Maybe Rick was coming back. Maybe this was all part of some elaborate test, some initiation. A punishment. A joke. Or maybe I'd stumbled into something ancient and hungry and I was just another mouthful it was taking its time chewing. Whatever it was, I wasn't ready to risk it. So, just before midnight, I clipped a leash onto Bishop's collar. He didn't resist. In fact, he stood up the moment the clock struck 11:58, like he'd been waiting for me to get my act together. We walked in silence. The building was quieter than usual. No late-night sounds from the other units. No footsteps above or below. Just that ever-present hum from deep inside the walls. It was louder now, like something just beyond them was moving. I wasn't even sure where Unit 6B was supposed to be. The building was only 5 stories tall. I'd explored it on my first day here, out of boredom, mostly. 5 floors. No hidden stairwells. No 6th floor. But Bishop knew. He led me down the 3rd floor hallway past my unit, straight to the end where the emergency exit sat unused and rusted shut. Or at least, I'd thought it was. He paused, then turned and sat beside the wall. And the wall opened. Not like a door. It just folded inward as if the drywall had been a curtain the whole time. No hinges. No creaks. Just a sudden absence of material where solid wall had been. Behind it, a set of stairs. Narrow. Steep. Pitch black. I stood there for a long time staring. But Bishop didn't wait. He trotted up without looking back. I followed, leash taut in my hand, trying to ignore the feeling that the staircase was descending instead of climbing. After what felt like far too many steps, we reached the top or maybe the bottom. It didn't matter anymore. There was a single hallway coated in a film of grime and mildew, dimly lit by a single, bare bulb that swung gently even though there was no draft. And there at the very end, Unit 6B. The door was black. No number, no peephole. Just a void of a door with a rusted knob and deep scratches gouged into the wood. The scratches looked deliberate, like claw marks, or worse, letters. But if they were letters, I didn't want to know what language they belonged to. I approached, handshaking. 3 knocks. Each one echoed like I'd struck the side of a cave. The moment the 3rd knock faded, the door creaked open a few inches. Bishop stepped forward. The leash slipped from my hand. He entered. I didn't. I couldn't see anything inside. It was black beyond comprehension, like someone had carved a hole in the universe and hung a door over it. Then the door shut. Not slammed. Just slowly eased shut with a soft click. Silence. I stood there like an idiot for maybe a full minute. Nothing moved. Nothing changed. There was no sound behind the door. No footsteps. No barking. No air. Eventually, I turned and left. I retraced my steps back through the hallway, down the staircase that felt like it reversed direction halfway through, and back into the 3rd floor corridor. The wall seal behind me. Seamless. Like it had never opened at all. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat on the couch, clutching a lukewarm mug of coffee, staring at the door. Midnight passed. 1 a.m. 2 a.m. Each tick of the clock scraped against my spine like a scalpel. 3:33 a.m. Right on time. There was a soft tap at the door. Not a knock. Not insistent. Just a presence. I opened it. Bishop stood there. His fur was wet, not soaked, but damp like he'd been walking through a fog bank. He smelled like metal and dirt and something else I couldn't place, something old, like the air in a forgotten mausoleum. He walked past me into the apartment, lay down on the floor, and curled up like it was any other night. No eye contact. No sound. Just sleep. I didn't. Instead, I opened my laptop and started searching. First for Rick, full name, address, obituary, anything. But there was nothing. No record of a Rick living in this building. No lease in his name. No public documents matching the face I remembered or the voice I heard that night behind the door. Then I searched for this building. Nothing remarkable. Built in the 50s. Changed ownership multiple times. No news articles. No online reviews. Nothing strange. Just silence. And that kind of silence, that digital absence, is more suspicious than any ghost story. The next morning, I asked the landlord directly. He was a squat man with thick glasses and an even thicker New Jersey accent. Always smelled like garlic and lemon cleaner. I asked him about Rick. Told him I'd met him when I moved in. His brow furrowed. Rick? Next door. Big dog doesn't bark. He squinted at me for a long moment, then shook his head. Nah, that unit's been vacant for 6 years. I laughed. Thought he was joking. But his face didn't change. There's no one in 3C, he said. Hasn't been anyone since the last guy disappeared. Left his stuff, never came back. We couldn't even get in the unit for a while, door wouldn't open. Maintenance said it was jammed. Eventually gave up. I didn't say anything, just nodded and walked away. When I got back upstairs, I passed Unit 3C. I don't know what made me do it, but I knocked. Nothing happened. No sound. No movement. No presence. I tried the knob. It didn't budge. Back in my apartment, Bishop was still sleeping. His breathing slow. Heavy. But something was different. There was dirt on the floor. Thick, dark smudges trailing from the front door to the center of the living room. Like he'd walked through mud that wasn't from this world. I followed the trail with my eyes until it vanished. Right beneath the couch, where the floorboards were starting to split. Tuesday night, I was in bed trying to trick myself into feeling normal again. The overhead light was off. Just the soft glow of a lamp on the nightstand as I flipped through some dog-eared paperback I'd already read 3 times. I wasn't even absorbing the words, it was just something to do, something to fill the space between now and dawn. Bishop was lying near the door, like always. I'd grown used to his patterns, the quiet meals at 9 p.m., his 3:33 a.m. disappearances, the way he always seemed to know things I didn't. I was still afraid of him, but in the way you're afraid of a loaded weapon. As long as you follow the rules, you're safe. Probably. So when he stood up suddenly, muscles tense, ears forward, I felt my breath lock in my throat. He stared at the door. Not in passing. Not with curiosity. With intent. I counted in my head. 1, 2, 3. His body didn't twitch. His pupils didn't move. 4, 5, 6. Still locked on. 7, 8, 9, 10. He didn't stop. My skin went cold. That kind of cold that starts at the base of your neck and creeps over your scalp. A part of me wanted to grab him, break his line of sight, shove him away from the door. But the smarter part of me, the part that had already survived one bark and one whisper, froze in place. 11, 12. That's when the doorknob started to move. Not rattling, not slamming, just a faint twitch as if someone on the other side was slowly testing it. Deliberate. Curious. Like a tongue feeling the edge of a tooth. I turned off the lamp. The room fell into thick, liquid darkness. Moonlight tried to slip through the window, but it felt uninvited. Then came the scratching. First soft. Fingertips, maybe. The way a child might drag nails over wood. Then it built, longer, deeper, more frantic. Not random either. There was a rhythm to it. Almost like it was spelling something out. Then the whisper came. You're doing a good job. Right through the door. Clear. Intimate. Too close. It wasn't a compliment. It was a performance. Something pretending to be human. Something watching. Testing. I looked at Bishop. He was still facing the door, but now his head turned slowly toward me. And he growled. Low. Deep. Not like a warning to protect me, but like something deciding. Deciding if I was still worth protecting. Not at the door at me. Something shifted behind my eyes. That bone-deep kind of panic that comes when you realize you are no longer just a bystander. You're part of it now. Entangled. I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. Then the voice came again, through the wood. Different tone. No longer pretending to be comforting. You want to see what happened to Rick? Not a question. A temptation. My ears popped like we were in a descending plane. I felt pressure not from outside, but from within. Like the air in the apartment had clenched around me. Every molecule stiff with tension. I whispered, barely audible, throat dry. No. The word seemed to hang in the air. And then stillness. No more scratching. No more movement. Just silence. Bishop sat down again, facing the door. His growl ceased. He gave one long, slow exhale. Then turned away, lay back down, and closed his eyes. But I knew he wasn't sleeping. And neither did I. I sat in the dark until dawn crept in through the blinds. When light finally returned, it didn't feel like safety. Just a temporary truce. The world outside went on, cars passed, neighbors talked, someone's kid screamed about cereal in the hallway. But inside? Inside my apartment, something had changed. The rules weren't just instructions anymore. They were boundaries, lines in the sand between what is and what should never be invited in. And I realized something else too. Whatever's behind that door, it doesn't just want Bishop. It wants me. Last night, I came home and felt it immediately. The absence. The air was wrong. Still, lighter, but in a way that made me uneasy. Like something heavy had been removed and now gravity didn't quite know what to do. Bishop was gone. Number 9 p.m. pacing. No quiet stare from across the room. No claws on wood. No soft breath. Just silence. And not the kind of silence you get when the city sleeps. This was watching silence, holding its breath silence. I waited. The clock ticked past 9, then past midnight, then past 3:33. Nothing. I barely moved. Couldn't eat. Couldn't sleep. Then, around 4 a.m., 3 soft knocks. Not at 3:33. Later. Deliberately later. The moment I heard them, every muscle in my body locked up. They were quiet, gentle, but too precise, like a surgeon tapping the edge of a blade. I crept to the door, heart punching against my ribs, looked through the peephole. No one there. I waited, counted to 30. Still no one. Against every rule in Rick's letter, against all reason, I opened the door. There was a box, plain cardboard, no markings, just sitting neatly on the doormat, as if it had always belonged there. Inside were 3 things. Bishop's collar, worn, familiar. The metal tag had been bent, like it had been caught in something. A thick manila envelope, heavy, overstuffed. My name scrawled across it in sharp, jittery ink. A single coin, old, blackened with tarnish, stained with blood. Human or not, I wasn't sure. It had strange grooves cut along the edges, symbols too worn to read. The envelope had a single message on the front. You've passed the trial. Keep watching the door. Your turn now. That was it. No signature, no explanation, just inevitability. I sat on the floor and opened the envelope. Inside, dozens of handwritten notes, crammed with lists, diagrams, names, rules. Most were on old yellow paper. Some were napkins, some water damaged. A few pages were burnt at the edges, as if they'd barely escaped whatever fire had nearly consumed them. Rules, timetables, some familiar, some not. Never let it hear your real name. Do not whistle between 1:07 and 1:11 a.m. If the mirror fogs but you didn't shower, leave the building immediately. On October 4th, open every window at once. Next to many of the rules were names. Some were scratched out. A few had question marks. One just said, willing participant, unconfirmed. And at the bottom of the stack, tucked away like an afterthought, was a photograph. I recognized it immediately. Rick, smiling, standing just outside the building in daylight, his hand resting on Bishop's back. And in the shadows behind him, near the door, me, clear as day, back turned, one hand on the knob, wearing the same jacket I'd lost last fall. I don't remember the photo being taken. I don't remember being there, but there I was, already part of it, already chosen. It's morning now. The box is still sitting in the corner. Bishop is back. I found him waiting at the door just before sunrise. No scratches on him, no blood, no sign of distress, just the same calm, silent look he's always had. He walked inside like nothing had happened. He sat back down in front of the door, and he began to watch. It's Sunday, again. Midnight is coming, and for the first time, I don't need the rules in front of me. They're in my bones now. The fear, too. But fear doesn't matter anymore. What matters is this. There's always someone watching the door. There's always someone keeping the cycle going. And now, it's me.